6:01 p.m. Announcement of items discussed in closed session. We already announced last time that we did your evaluation, right? That's what we discussed. Public comments regarding items in closed session or past that. Open session called to order. Flag salute. Mrs. Huggins, will you lead us in the flags?
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No action was taken in closed session. We are coming to the adoption of the agenda. Most people probably know, but a little bit of a somber announcement. There's only 4 of us here this evening. That's because board member Bailey has died from cancer. And it's kind of hard to talk about because he's somebody that I've known for over 30 years. And I know everybody on this board and multiple people in the community have been touched by him and his family. He wasn't just a guy who served on a board. Nothing that not that there's anything wrong with that, but as a man, you know, it's funny thinking of him walking around as a junior hire, but I got to know him barbecuing at varsity football games because he was just always there to do something, and he was a good man and a good man of faith. And he was doing his best to raise his kids, and he was always somebody pleasant to be around. And so I don't feel like I can do justice with my words, even though I'm the one who's supposed to be doing this. So I don't feel like I can really do justice to him and who he was and what he meant to a lot of us. So just wanted to kind of let people know why he's not here, and that I know I will miss him, and I feel comfortable saying everybody on this board will miss him and respected him, and I just want to say from all of us and everybody else who can say to him that we thank him for his service, and he was, you know, still on the phone right to the end, no matter what he went through, and you know, he was just a good man and a good brother in faith. Sorry to see what happened. So, adoption of the agenda. We have a motion on the adoption of the agenda. Move to adopt. All right. We have a motion by Mr. Hunt.
Go second.
We have a second by Mrs. Anderson. Can we do general consent since there is on the board?
I think we'll want to go ahead and do roll call.
All right, so we'll continue with roll call vote. We have a motion and a second. Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson votes aye. Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope votes aye. Mr. Hunt?
Aye.
Mr. Hunt votes aye. Chair votes aye. Agenda is adopted 4-0. Comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. I think all the cards I have are for items that are on the agenda, but I just want to check.
And just for clarification, it is for items, since it's a special meeting, it is for items only on the agenda.
Oh, on
But
the
what
agenda.
I might recommend to the board would
I'm
be to
sorry.
take those comments at the time of
Okay.
that item, if that works for the board.
Yeah, I think that way everybody will all be on the same
Yes.
subject. Okay, I'm so used to it being items not on the agenda.
I know.
All right. So that brings us right into business items then. So business item A is a resolution to initiate provisional appointment process to fill trustee position due to vacancy. I think we just went over why we have a vacancy. I think we're going to go over the procedure a little bit and what we're looking at.
Yeah, and if you want to go ahead and approve the resolution, and then when we get to item
Okay.
B, I'll go over the process a little bit for you.
Do we have a motion to initiate the appointment?
I'll motion to initiate.
So Mrs. Pope moves, Mr. Hunt seconds. Mrs. Anderson.
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson votes aye. Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope votes aye. Mr. Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Hunt votes aye. Chair votes aye. All right. Resolution passes 4-0. you want to explain to us in the public the process a little bit?
Sure. So business item is seeking two of you to be on a subcommittee for this process. And this process, what we're looking to do is help logistics or clerical for the process. What we will do is we will open up a window to seek applicants. The window would open from July 24th through August 7th. At the close of business on the 7th, I would meet with the subcommittee to see which candidates are eligible based on the criteria to fill the seat. We would then bring all eligible applicants forward to the August 19th board meeting where the board, you four board members would interview any potential candidates and make a determination of which one of those members you would like to place in the vacant seat. After that, we post the name for 10 days. If there is not a substantial disagreement with that, we would then install the person that you appoint at the September, I believe it's 19th meeting. And then they would resume and fulfill for the term, remaining part of the term of that Mr. Jabeli's vacated seat. So what I'm asking today is just some direction on your agreement to see who would like to serve. If I could have two of you serve with me, I'll get with you probably tomorrow or the next day to set up a time so we can meet to just make sure the logistics behind it are taken care of.
So I suggest that maybe Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Poe, they were interested.
Is that, Ms. Anderson, is that agreeable to you, that it would be Mr. Wilson and Ms., okay. So what I will do with both of you is I'll reach out and get a time that we can come together and I'll go through the paperwork with you and we can get it going. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. All right, so that kind of took care of B since that was discussion. So that brings us to business item C, plan for the 2021 school year. So what we will do is we'll have a motion on the floor first, and then we'll open it up for discussion with the board members. And then I have some cards here of people from the public that want to address the issue, and that way we can just keep it all tidy. Is that right? And you also have some online?
If you don't mind, yes.
Okay,
So what I'd like, if the board is okay with this, I'd like to kind of share with you where we are and what's going on in our world here.
Can we motion to open it up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought-
No, we haven't opened it.
all right. So do we have a motion to bring this item to the floor?
Yes.
We have a motion by Mr. Hunt. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Pope. Mrs. Anderson.
Aye.
Mrs. Anderson votes aye. Mrs. Pope.
Aye.
Mrs. Pope votes aye. Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt votes aye. Chair votes aye. All right. Please.
Okay, so I wanted to share, there's a little bit of misinformation in our board meeting two months ago. The board had given me specific direction to ensure that any big changes to staff, or not staffing, to the school structure, that I came back to you with that. And I wanted to clarify, there was some misinformation in the media today. The 13 county superintendents of Sacramento County, public health came together over the last few days and in concert previous to that and determined as a superintendent that we wanted to make the recommendations to our boards that we would start the school district in distance learning because there is a high rate of infection based on county health's information, plus the testing scenario that we're in right now is very long. It takes about 8 to 9 days to actually get a test result back. And therefore, as we looked at it, we started seeing, we're already seeing some of our own staff members that are coming in contact, would need to be quarantined. Before we know it, we are going to be out anyway. We wanted to look at this as a directive to say, spend the next time with staff to make sure we improve significantly our distance learning, because we know we left on March 13th, we were all thrown into something that, I'll be honest, it worked in some cases, in other cases it did not work, and we are committed to improving that process. So as a result of that, we did have in your packet tonight the recommendation to go to Plan 2, which was our hybrid, but we are adjusting that recommendation from staff to say that we would like to start the school year in the distance learning model, which we know will be significantly different. We've already started making plans. Mr. Jordan in a minute is going to share with that. But then also that once we know our ultimate goal, I've not met an educator yet whose ultimate goal is not to get back to school, get our kids back to school. And when we see those high rate of community transfer, when we also see the ability for testing to be done sooner with consultation with county health, that we would gladly get back. And I see it coming back more in a scenario 2 and then ultimately a scenario 1 as we gradually work our way back. So I wanted to clarify all that. And then the next piece I wanted to share is I just wanted to give, as we begin this, because this is a very difficult situation for all of us. I just need to call out Mr. Jordan. Mr. Jordan's sitting back there. And also the team of people who have worked off the clock for many, many hours and days to get to where we are today. I know a lot of staff, we are living and breathing this because we want what's best for the students. We want them back. But we also have an obligation to our students and staff to keep them safe and healthy. And we also know that if the scenario keeps playing out in the next 3 weeks, we'd be right back in this spot anyway, because we wouldn't have the staff to actually staff the educational process. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Jordan to kind of share where we are and then proceed from there.
All right, good evening. Can you understand me okay? Excellent. Okay.
I apologize, I forgot to dial us in.
Oh, that's okay.
We have a couple people on the phone. I'm sorry if you just entertain me for a minute here.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll.
Thank you. You're joining a call with one other person.
Mr. Grimes, are you on?
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, it helps.
I am here.
It helps if we dial in too. Thank you. Sorry, Mike.
Sure, I was watching. You're coming through really well on the screen, the computer screen, I'll tell you that. That's great.
Good. All right. So
If David could put his on mute,
Yeah.
Mike.
You might want to mute yourself, David, please.
Did you hear that, David?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I was watching you on the screen since I couldn't get through, and you look really good on the screen.
Can you put your, because we're getting some background noise. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Jordan.
So about a week after the end of the school year, a group of about 30 folks from the Center Joint Unified School District got together, started looking at what is the next year going to look like, and developing plans for the different scenarios of the possibilities of what could look like. And that's what we've been meeting weekly, numerous times each week. Came up with a playbook. This should be in your packet, correct?
Yes.
Outstanding. So the playbook, we came up with 3 different plans, or 3 different scenarios, whichever you want to call it, to deal with what is happening out in the community in regards to the coronavirus. So the guidance that we used for these are all listed on page 2. That was the public health orders. We're updating from the county office, Department of Health, the United States Department of Health and Human Services Centers for Disease Control, their guidance to schools. We use the Sacramento County Office of Education, their guidance for reopening the schools. We use the Department of Education's guidance for opening schools. EAB, which is research, national research firm that we have a contract with, their guidance when they're looking at schools all across, as well as California Department of Health and the trailer bill and the AB 77, the trailer bill, as well as the related ed code. So those were our guidance documents. We were able to come up with 3 plans. Plan 1 would be to return to school using as many of the guidance recommendations as we could. We determined pretty quick there's no way physically there's enough space in the schools to do the social distancing. We can't fit them in a classroom with the 6 feet of distance. We just can't fit them in the cafeterias, anything. that wasn't a possibility. But it's a plan that we hope to get to, obviously, because everybody wants to get back to school. Plan 2 is a hybrid plan that would allow us to do the social distancing, the recommendations on masks, so on and so forth. The hybrid is a 40-60, we're calling it the transitional plan. That plan would be where half of the students would come on Tuesday, Thursday, half the students would come on Wednesday, Friday. It would allow us to spread out the students, again, for the social distancing and so forth. However, it still exposes your staff to all of the students. So for example, at Center High School, 1,300 kids, you'd have 650 on Tuesday, Thursday, 650 on Wednesday, Friday, but you'd have all 100 plus staff all 4 of those days. Mondays would be used for meeting times, for interventions, for planning, for IEPs, for 504s, for SSTs, that kind of stuff in Plan 2. And then finally, Plan 3, which is the full-time distance learning model. And we recognize, before I start talking about the Plan 3, it was rough, distance learning, when we started in March. We basically, as well as everybody else across the country, in about a weekend to figure out how to make this work. And we realized that there were some significant difficulties with that. So we've revamped that whole thing, even changed the name to virtual learning, to make it much more robust, much more rigorous, and with some checks and balances along the way so that we can monitor better to make sure that it's meeting the needs of all of our students. So if you would, you guys have this, correct? I'm going to go through Plan 3, which is our recommendation. If you could toggle to page 12, please. So here's how this would work, and I'm going to start with the preschool level. This plan is developed for preschool through grade 12. Adult ed is a separate document. We can talk about that at the next meeting. So preschool would be at the virtual learning format. They have had some success with that during the springtime. That would be online. Some of the special ed services, such as OT and speech, we may be able to bring some people in on a one-on-one basis to do those in person, as long as the families are comfortable with that. We want to get as much connectedness as possible. Going to the elementary schools, our focus would be, main focus is going to be reading, writing, math. There is a requirement at kindergarten for 180 minutes. That's in the trailer bill. For first and second grade, you're going to be at 230 minutes. 4th through 6th grade, a minimum of 240 minutes per day. And so what that means is a combination of online time with their teacher plus the minute equivalent of assignments that they would be working on their own distance learning wise. So how we would work this out, if we start with kindergarten, they would go online every day at least 60 minutes. Now that doesn't mean 60 minutes in a row, because we know kindergartners have very short attention. But 60 minutes during that day. So they may do a 15-minute block, then another 15, so on and so forth through the day. In between that, they would be given assignments to work on. Some of them would be online assignments. Some of them would do Google Classroom, which is one of our platforms. And some of them would be packets that we were going to distribute, so they have physical work to do as well. In addition, the teacher would be available for office hours. So every day parents could either call in or email in or Google Meet in and get any questions answered, as well as students. Kindergarten's going to be a little rough for them to go online on their own. But with parent help on that, if there's any questions or any tutoring that needs to happen, that would happen during that office hours. We will make every effort, teachers will make every effort to return calls within 1 business day. So if you call on a Tuesday, the expectation is we get back to you by at least Wednesday within that 24-hour business day time. I'll take this off for a second. My glasses are fogging. I can't read. Grades 1 through 3, 230 minutes of online instruction. In this case, again, they would be online for 60 minutes. that may not be 60 minutes in a row. Again, that may be broken down into smaller chunks, 20, 20, 20 as an example. During that time, they would receive direct instruction. They'd also have at least one social emotional activity. And that's to connect students as well as just check in on their social emotional well-being. So there would be at least one of those activities a day. Their independent work then, in grades 1 and 2, they'd be working on reading and writing, foundational reading skills, teaching of comprehension skills and writing skills. Again, we're focusing on reading, writing, and math specifically. And then grades 3 would be the practice of reading comprehension, writing, instruction, and practice. Total 230 minutes a day, per day. And that includes both the online time and the time equivalent of any assignments that they'd be working on. Again, we'd have office hours so that students and parents could contact teachers to get answers to any questions, do small group tutoring, that kind of stuff. As well as in that independent time, they would have social science activities, social studies activities, PE activities, science activities, so that we're not getting behind on those as well. But we know that reading is key. We know that reading is key from all the grades up, especially after 3rd grade. So we want to really focus on that during our direct instruction time. Again, 60 minutes, 24-hour turnover for any emails, questions, phone calls. Grade 4 through 6, it ratchets up at 10 minutes a day to 240 minutes of instruction. The same format. There's going to be an online time of 60 minutes. Again, that can be broken up. Doesn't have to be 60 continuous minutes. They'll have their independent study work, still focusing on reading and writing during the direct instruction time. Then it's broken down 60 minutes of math as well per day that they would be working on. And then 60 minutes of a combined science, social studies, and PE activities so that they're not missing anything. Also, once again, a social emotional activity at least once a day, one time during that live instruction day. We're trying to emphasize, again, that peer connection point as well. We have approved instructional methods and platforms. And we've looked at the different, not only platforms, so for example, platform would be Google Classroom, which everybody uses, but another platform we have just about to purchase for our speech people. It's called Presence Learning. That's a whole platform that's built for distance learning. We just went through a webinar. We're going to purchase Sonday, which is a reading program that is built for distance learning. Whereas some of our lenders and so forth, some of our other curriculums weren't necessarily built for distance learning. We're bringing in approved curriculum that's built specifically for that purpose. So the student responsibility in grades 3 through 6, they'd be on 240 minutes a day, both live instruction and independent work, 5 days a week. Mondays we would have reserved for IEPs, those kind of things. In our special ed students with IEPs, we're making sure our case managers are checking in at least weekly, and that's a live contact weekly, making sure that their needs are being met. We're also looking at the re-engagement activities or contracts, where if a kid's not participating during the week, we're going to be making contacts, whatever it takes to get the family to re-engage, the student to re-engage, break down whatever the barriers are, whether it's internet, Chromebooks, whatever, making sure they have whatever their needs are so that they can engage with the curriculum and with their fellow students. Any questions on the elementary?
I do.
Yes.
If they don't engage with the student or the student doesn't engage with the parent, would they be considered truant? How would you handle that?
They would be considered truant after, yes, they would be considered truant. And it'd be a combination of, are they attending online as well as turning in their assignments? So that equivalent of 240. So the idea is once a week they'll be turning in, teachers will be turning in, we're not going to call it an attendance sheet, but you kind of think of it that way. Who is engaged? Who's showing up to the class meetings online? Who's turning in their assignments, so on and so forth. And then we're going to be making contacts, splitting that up amongst not only certificate staff, but classified staff to make sure we're engaging people quickly. So a couple weeks doesn't go by without them being involved in the process.
And for these online classes, are there going to be interpreters for the non-English speaking students?
We do have aides, yes. We do have aides that speak different languages. We are with a, we work with a service now, an online service that can interpret not only instructional, but all documents, meetings, so on and so forth. And they do all that through a distance learning format. So we've contracted with them, yes.
And for newcomer students, we have ELD instructors that would be working closely with them and the interpreters if the student or family wasn't, needed interpretation services.
So the goal is with these online meetings is not just the teacher. The aides will be involved too. And sometimes they may be breaking out into small group sessions, breaking into a tutoring type session, translation, whatever is necessary.
And then in regards to the, can you hear me?
Yeah.
In regards to the curriculums that you have purchased, for instance, speech, will you be able to use these curriculums other than distance learning?
Yes.
So it's not just a distance learning package, it's a package that they'll be able to use throughout.
So, correct.
So upon return, so a lot of these are year subscriptions,
Right.
since they're online based, so upon return, we would be able to use those in the current year, and then once we're back, we would determine if that's a source we want to keep because it was really beneficial, or we would let it expire because the hope would be we wouldn't need that from the distance learning or the virtual learning aspect.
So for example, for our speech format that we're looking at, presence learning, it has a lot of these activities that you could normally do in person, but they've converted them to an online format as well. So you can use them in either scenario, and then you use their platform to do the online stuff. So it's showing up automatically on the screen instead of a teacher having to hold up something.
So 2 points on that, and I'm sure Mr. Hunt will say something about the cost. There is specific dollars that are coming to us, and Lisa's received some of them already that are directed only for this purpose. So as you say, we go into a year subscription and it's $10,000. It's coming out of a pot of funds that's coming specific for COVID-related expenditures. We've also used it to buy more Chromebooks because we have enough for our kids, but we know what's going to happen is you start using them every single day, we're going to get breakdowns and stuff. So we need to have some replacements as well. So we have those coming as well with those.
And then one more question. My concern is regarding preschool and kindergarten. Because at that level, they don't know how to use a computer yet. And most of the time, the parents will be at work and they will be at a daycare possibly, or maybe with a sibling. If they're with a sibling, the sibling is going to do their online classes. So it's not an option and we have to do it. I'm concerned we're going to lose those kids.
So one of the things we've talked about, the way we could work out is, we don't have to go during the normal school hours. So maybe preschool we do later in the day or earlier in the day than a high school kid, for example. And we've talked about moving high school back maybe towards the afternoon because we know they're sleeping in. We want to catch them at a good time. So, because you're correct. Kindergarten and preschool, they're going to need somebody there, whether it's an older sibling or a parent or a daycare. They're going to need that assistance.
With the kindergartners switching into the first grade, they're extending their day. And anybody that's ever been around a first grade classroom knows that sometimes it's hard to keep those kids awake even when they're in class.
Yes, it is.
If they're at home, you've lost them, I'm afraid. How are we going to, it's going to be awful hard on those kids to do that. And the families to battle the kids to get them behind the computer.
And that's why we're looking more, even though it's a 60 minutes total online, we're looking at a smaller chunks of time online. Give them a little bit of a break. Come back again. Because we know that they're not going to be able to maintain their attention. That they need constant break. Geez, high school kids need constant breaks. Even in class, they're not 100% focused.
And yet, that's going to tie up the family's whole day, too, if you do it that way. So there's going to be, both ways, it's going to be hard on the family. I don't know.
It is certainly not ideal. I agree. I have kids of my own at home that we're going through the same process. I get it.
I don't know what's best or how to handle it, but it's got pitfalls, for sure.
No fault to you.
No,
Nothing that you've done.
There's not.
Yeah, it's not
Circumstance.
nothing that we could avoid.
I hear you.
You know, there's no happy ending here.
These are rough times, to say the least.
But I would hope we make some allowances or figure out a way to deal with the parents on something like that, rather than coming across as accusatory or, like they're not trying hard enough or something.
Our goal is to work, we're in this together. We're not a truancy officer. We're in this together. So these re-engagement conversations, how can we help? What can we do to help? We're even throwing around a plan. This is not a guarantee, but throwing around a plan. Maybe there's some kids that we could bring, our tier 2, tier 3 kids who are struggling, on campus in very, very small groups, where we could help them out that way in tutoring type sessions. That, again, that's in talks right now. I don't want to say that's part of the plan. But
Even
how
saying you're
can we work together?
Yeah, if you're talking about it, you need to acknowledge that.
They've been saying for years high schoolers do better with a later schedule. Maybe it's a good time to try it.
Mike, so having gone through this last semester, and I know a lot of it's logistics, what do you do with the kid who maybe has a question? He's got an assignment due. It's been 5 hours, and he's like, it's been 5 hours, my teacher hasn't answered me. Okay, well, your teacher might have 120 or 180 students. There might be 119 other emails the teacher's answering. That doesn't help that kid with that assignment right then when it's due. So have we talked at all in working stuff like that, of some sort of accommodations? Because one class in particular that I'm thinking, this kid had a goal of getting a 4.1, 4.0, because in one class he couldn't figure out what the teacher was trying to say, and he didn't. So I'm like, and obviously did you email the teacher? Did you request a meeting? Did you request not all high schoolers know that. The high schooler was just kind of like, I haven't gotten an answer. Well, then, did get through. Well, the email got answered, but it didn't get answered for 2 days. We had the met on Monday morning, and then suddenly Wednesday night at 11 p.m., 14 assignments get dropped, and I don't ever remember a time when I was in school when a single teacher ever in a single class dropped 14 assignments. And it was due on Friday. So I don't know how much of that is technology and the programs we're using, but aside from it not being as good a quality education, there were a lot of things that we hope being second semester it would work out the kinks. But I know I'm not the only one who dealt with that with my high schoolers, because I've heard from it from other people, and that it just didn't work. So I know we set these parameters, but do we have different software? What's going to make this semester distance learning different than last semester's distance learning?
There's a couple of things. One, we've learned from our mistakes from the last semester, first of all. We also know going in, there's a little bit different motivation from a student side. They knew they could go back to their third quarter grade last time, and that created some problems. Some kids just kind of checked out. That's not going to be the case this time. From an administrative standpoint, we have a better idea of how to monitor what's going on from teacher to teacher to ensure that what needs to happen is happening. I think we have a better understanding that we're used to, a lot of teachers are used to hard deadlines when things are due. We're going to have to be a little bit more flexible on that because things are going to come up. People's internet's going to go out. Things are going to happen. We're going to have some more flexibility. And that's not to say everybody turn everything in the very last day of the semester. I'm not saying that. But more along the lines of what we do with IEPs and 504s, where we have a little bit more flexibility in getting things in when something happens, or if a kid isn't getting it, if they're not understanding the content or the task. We're going to have to be more flexible in those areas. Absolutely. Our teachers now understand the platforms better than they did. Many of our teachers had never used Google Classroom before. It was all brand new, let alone the Google Meets or the Zoom, that kind of stuff. We've got a little bit more experience in that now, and we're bringing in some better platforms. They're going to allow them to be more fluid in their delivery of instruction that we just didn't have last year, or last semester, excuse me. So that's going to be a difference as well.
So one thing that you mentioned that I think is a big deal, is everybody gonna be posting everything on the same platform? So I know we had a
Yes.
scenario last year where a kid thought he had done all of his assignments and then found out some teachers were posting in Google Classroom and some were posting to Aries. The kid wasn't necessarily taking advantage of, I can rely on the third quarter grade, yeah, I got everything done, and then, nope, you got X number of missing assignments because it was posted on Aries instead. And when you say that it's better, one of the things I think that's gonna be harder, because kids last semester, they could pick and choose strategically which classes that they would do. Like, okay, I can rely on my third quarter grade, so
Correct.
this one that I need to raise, I'll email my teacher. Well, now if they can't rely on that, and all the kids are emailing all 8 of their teachers, that just seems logistically like a nightmare to me. Maybe it's not. Maybe people are used to answering 100 emails an hour or whatever else, but I almost think teachers would have been getting fewer emails last semester because kids are like, I already had A's in those classes, I'm checking out and I'm concentrating on these. I don't know logistically how we deal with all teachers getting, so I don't know, I'm picturing that as a heavier lift, and hopefully we can conquer it, but I don't know how we do it when we had problems with the lighter load last semester.
And we've got it built in, the schedule is more organized this year for teachers. We've got hours built in every single day to be not only online for an hour, and it's not a recommendation, it's a requirement, as well as email checking time, planning time, and so forth. So it's broken down what their minute requirement is online, and then what the expectations are during that off online time, if that's a term, when they're not online, for what the rest of their day is looking like. And in terms of getting back to parents, getting back to students, having those office hours no matter what, every single day, that is built in.
And I think, actually, Trustee Wilson, with your 4 kids, you and I had a lot of conversations about the experiences, and it was fun because, fun is a weird word for it, but it was fun because I was able to hear firsthand. And a lot of those things were nice because we don't typically hear those things. So those tidbits help us improve. But I want to, and Mike we're doing a fantastic job. We're still going to have hiccups. So I don't want everyone to think we're sitting here thinking we've got the perfect plan. We know there are going to be things, and we have to adapt. We have to work through the process when we hear feedback. The other idea that we've had that came about yesterday was we have some staff that typically would be dealing with face-to-face with people. Let's utilize them to reach out to the Pope family or the Hunt family proactively to say, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's great, good. Oh, no, I have a question. Oh, okay, great. We'll get a message to Mr. Jordan or Mr. Lara or whatever to do it. So we know we're going to have some struggles, but I think the plan we have, the accountability of it, and just the structure will lend itself to a better experience. But I don't want to disillusion that that it's going to be perfect. We're going to have to adapt. And I know you're not saying that, but I think the feedback is what will make us better with my whole point.
And I guess where I'm going with that is, I know it's not going to be perfect. What I think of is when the kid takes the fall for that because we don't have a procedure in place, right? So, and I don't envy being in the teacher's position because, like with my kid, I'm going to tell my kid, you failed that, suck it up, it's a learning experience. But we all know some parents are going to say, yeah, my kid never got the assignment, whereas if it's my kid, I'm not going to let him go to the teacher unless he honestly didn't get a response and that honestly did push him past the deadline, right? So I wouldn't want to be the teacher trying to sort out who's telling me the truth, who's not, trying to answer anything. So I don't think it's going to be perfect at all. I just want to know that there's a procedure in place for a kid who's honestly working that hard, that child does not pay the penalty because that child, just whether his internet connection was down or the teacher was sick that day or the teacher's internet connection went down, if it's honestly that the kid not pay the price for like a technology product.
Agree, 100%. And I think you would find, I won't speak for all teachers, but I'll speak with the administrative group that we talk with. That is a very consistent message. It's kind of like giving grace to the kid. The benefit of the doubt is going to go to this kid and the family to help them succeed versus not.
Speaking of that, how many computers did we lose last year?
We left some out because we were thinking that they would just bring them back. Mr. Deason, do you remember the correct number? It was not as high
Very
as,
small
Yeah.
loss and breakage, way less than we thought we were gonna get. So I mean, it was in the 30s, something like that for all of the
out of the hundreds that we had
hundreds
out.
that we checked out. So it turned out really, really well for the ones that we got back. Now, some of the classes let their kids keep their computers for the following year. But what we got back, we got 95% back in good condition.
And Ms. Anderson, what I've been wanting to do anyway is issue a Chromebook to a student anyway, just like we would a textbook, regardless of we're in distance learning or not. To me, that is their textbook nowadays, and if you don't have one that you could use, we want to issue. So this is a benefit that we've received, is we're starting to see what is our shrinkage, what is our loss with as it relates to those. And anyway, so that's a byproduct of this, is now we're starting to learn. People are taking good care of their stuff. I mean, they're treating it like a nice book. You know, every once in a while they come back, water damage. Every once in a while, little brother or sister got them and drew with crayons on them. But it happens, and there's no way around it. Life happens. I've broken a phone, slipped out of my hands. I didn't mean to do it. Sorry.
No?
So anybody else have any questions?
No.
Okay, so
No, we're not done.
You just wanted to run through his middle school and high
Is
school.
that okay, or-
Just real quick.
yeah, no, go ahead.
You guys,
Go, please, go.
okay. At the middle school, we're on page 14. So again, it'd be a minimum of 240 minutes of instruction time. They're going to be on a 6-period day just for this year. We'll toggle back to the 8-period day next year. The 6-period day would be split between A and B, so they would have half their classes on A day, periods 1 through 3, 4 through 6 on B day. Again, this time, instead of last time where it was more once a week, they would have a thing, it's every single day, every single class, 30 minutes a day, online live instruction with the teacher. Included in that 30 minutes a day online live instruction is some pure interaction time. Because we know for all kids, but especially middle school and high school kids, that pure interaction is huge. So they will have a schedule where they're doing that at least 30 minutes a day per class. Then they're also going to be doing 50 minutes of work per class for those the 3 classes that they had that day independently. So that would add up to the time, the 240 minutes. Again, we're working not only on core classes, but also elective classes, so they do have some elective options. We also have our interventions worked in. We're going to continue with corrective reading for those that need it, and we figured out a way to do that online, so that will continue as well. Still have the office hour time, where again, students and can be in small groups, so on and so forth. Again, we have the district platform. So for example, kind of going back to your question earlier, the expectation now is that all teachers will be using Google Classroom to post their assignments. Likewise, all teachers will be using Aries to post their grades. We tried numerous times to work between Aries and Google to get those to talk together. They just don't play nicely together, the Google Gradebook. Eugene's tried, and if Eugene can't do it, I believe nobody can do it. The guy's a guru. So we can't rely on the Google Gradebook anymore to be the gradebook that everybody sees. It's got to be the Aries Gradebook.
Were you just talking about trying to get Google Classroom to talk to Aries? Is that what you're...
Their gradebook through the Google Classroom. Yeah, we couldn't get it to work. We've gone through the companies. They just won't play nicely together. It sure would make everybody's life a lot easier. It would be a traditional grading system, the A through F. Again, grades count. There's no going back to your 3rd quarter grade. We start from day 1, grades count. With the understanding there's going to have to be some flexibility on deadlines. There's just going to have to be. Any questions on?
Middle school, they will have a PE
Yes.
and athletics. I know it's not part of the curriculum, but is there going to be athletics at the middle school?
It depends on whatever the guidance would be. As of right now, CIF we should hear on Monday. what the guidance would be. I mean, I think it's Monday the 20th.
Oh, the 23rd.
23rd, okay. I know it's the week of the 20th, I think. So it depends on that. It depends on the those that would play against them and stuff like that.
Another middle school. Okay. Moving on to Center High School. I'm going to split up Center High School and McClellan High School because they're going to run a little bit differently. Center High School is going to maintain their AV 8-period block, doing the AV A days and B days. We're going to ratchet up the minutes at the high school level. So the minimum required is 240. We're actually going to have 6 hours of work a day for high school kids. So they'll be online 45 minutes for each class period each day. So that 45 minutes, again, is 45 minutes of English, 45 minutes of math, or whatever their classes are. Then they're going to be expected to do additional 45 minutes of independent study work, where they're working on assignments from their class. So that's, again, going 5 days a week. There's still a 60-minute office hours time that they can come in and check in with their teachers, do small group interactions, so on and so forth. We are looking at the possibility of making a Monday, taking it off the AV schedule and making it an intervention day. So what that would mean is we could do small groups of kids who are struggling. We could do that online with kids. Pull out those kids, tier 2, tier 3, who are really struggling in whatever the subject area is, science, math, English, whatever. And have more direct instruction just with those kids that are struggling. That's in discussion right now. We won't see that necessarily in the plan yet, but that is something that we're seriously taking a look at. So it would actually increase the time online for teachers a little bit on that Monday, but I think it would be very beneficial to our kids who are struggling in this format.
Sorry. What's the timeline? How long are you going to wait for her to get the intervention if you choose to do that?
We're meeting again tomorrow. It would be great if we can, I'm not going to guarantee we can hammer that out tomorrow. But
Sometimes the intervention takes, you got to identify the intervention as needed, so sometimes it takes a few weeks, even with some special ed services, it takes a few weeks
to a month
to identify what it is. I think we'll also get a good idea after a couple weeks, so hopefully we're getting back, but as long as we're in this, we'll start seeing the idea of what kids need more help, and then come back.
again, the grading would be a traditional A, B, C, D, F grading system. And then there may be some options for credit, no credit, depending on individual basis. What's going on with their families. Because we recognize families are struggling during this time too, especially if people start getting sick. Or family members start getting sick, or those kind of things. We need to have some flexibility built in. Again, it's got to be we're working together. It's not an us first them. We're all working together to get through a difficult time.
Would there be an option, or could we think about setting up an option for particularly junior high and high school kids who the parent can't get to work at home, can't get them to do anything or cooperate at home, to set up small groups at school that there's somebody else in charge?
So the scenario Mr. Jordan kind of mentioned in elementary was that could become a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. A higher level tier is that we start working with a family and I just can't get little Scotty to be online. I just can't do it. And then we can intervene with them, and that could be a possibility, and that's another intervention that we're working with now. Once we get kind of the main platform, then we're starting to move into what other strategies. We can't offer that, obviously, to everyone, but if we're struggling, we can help the parents, especially we have an obligation by Ed Code now to reach out and find some solutions to those strategies.
Because some parents just clash with, a teaching thing with their kid, and it just doesn't work.
Right.
So we started looking into a model out of Contra Costa County that brings in very small groups, like 5 kids with a teacher, where they're working in the room. We're definitely investigating that. I wish we could do it for every kid, but we can't.
Almost like
do
an
it.
independent study where, come get your stuff, we're going to give you some instruction, and then you go home and do it on your own.
Well, and this is not developed by any means, but one of the thoughts we had too is even if it's just the space that you have a teacher with 4 kids, they're all spread way out, but someone's just in there as they do their distance learning. You don't have to be their teacher. It would just be an option to get some kids. But again, you can't offer that to everyone, but that is something we're absolutely exploring as we run into parents who are like, I'm struggling with this. How can I do this? And it may not be your teacher, but if there's questions or if there's something that comes up, it
Or
might
even,
work.
yeah, I was even thinking about maybe some classes for parents with this new program. They don't know it. They look at it and say, this is nuts. You know, the
That's a
new.
good idea.
Yeah,
Basically, parent education on a lot of this.
Yes.
yeah. Maybe if, you know, if you want to come learn the new math, come on in. We're going to go through the program for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Dudley's already working on a plan.
Yeah, and I was going to say, the one thing that we have talked about through Ryan too is like, it's almost like Google Classroom. How do you get parents informed on that? Because to be quite honest, until my son got into it, I knew what it was, but now it's like, oh, okay, I know pretty darn good now. But I think that's, thank you. And I know that's on the list, but I think it's great information. Yep.
And then we're ready to move to McClellan. McClellan is a continuation school. It's under different ed code, different rules. So we go back to 180 minutes minimum. Again, they're going to be online for their classes, 30 minutes a day minimum online. And then they'll have their additional independent work to do. There's also going to be a 45-minute online one-on-one tutoring where those kids can sign up for a one-on-one tutoring or small group. They're not exactly one, it could be maybe two. But sign up for small group tutoring if they need additional help or additional guidance on anything that's going on. Again, they have a much smaller class size anyway, so it's going to be a little bit easier to get the questions and things answered just by its very nature. They're going to have a little bit different grading schedule. Theirs is going to be A, B, C, and then there's going to be a credit, no credit after that. And so that would be in conjunction with the family and the teacher, what's going to work best for them. Questions on that? Oh, okay. If we, in Plan 3, our independent study option would be this, because that is, they're at home. I've received a couple of phone calls over the last week about parents who are interested in, they're calling it homeschool, but when I start talking to them, what they really want, they just want their kids not to be around anymore. So this would satisfy that. We do have Edgenuity, which is an online computer-based program, which to be honest is very difficult for students to be, a lot of students to be successful because you are completely on your own, except for an hour a week with a teacher. But we do have some students who are, for example, we had a student last year who was in cancer treatment, he was in the hospital, that was the best option for him. We do have a handful of kids, that will still be an option for them.
And that would be an option as we transition into Plan 2. That would still be an option for the families that chose to stay in a 100% distance model as we transition through that until we can get back. So we know there's a spectrum of people within this, and so we want to make sure that we make them comfortable with the learning experience the most.
So in terms of our special ed population, our students with an IEP, we will be doing both teletherapy. Again, we're looking at different platforms such as the Presence Learning for our speech folks, which actually also has a platform for our OT folks as well, although they use a pretty good platform now, separate from Google Classroom. We're looking at giving some families the option if they want to come in, because it's just one-on-one, and we can do social distancing in that way. To be able to do PT, OT, speech, ERMS type services. But those will continue as they normally would in the school year, as well as the one-to-one meetings with their case manager every week to make sure that their needs are being met, and we're working through any barriers there are in the process. And then the same for our English learner services will continue as well. Both in a pull-out situation, like a Google Classroom pull-out to a separate, as well as during the class instruction time. That's the gist. Are there any other questions or?
I have a question.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a question, so I don't imagine this is on purpose, but to me there's a real poison pill in here, and that is we keep saying we're going to follow the Sacramento County Health Officer, et cetera, and in her literature she's staked out quite an extremist position. So for instance, like if you go to the National Federation of High Schools and everything they put up, they say if we come up with a cure, if we get herd immunity, if we get a vaccine. They lay out like 4 or 5 paths to which we could come back to school. The Sacramento County Department of Public Health has staked out the position only when there's a vaccine. Period. Now, I know that Moderna said they're going into trial 3 yesterday and their stock shot up. But most people's positions have been, we're not going to have a vaccine for a year. So, I know when Scott and I talk, we talk about common sense, and I'm sure if we all talked about common sense, yeah, of course, if things get better, we'd come back. But in our plan, both for Plan 1 and 2, we're saying we're going to follow this person at the Sacramento County Department of Health. And she's already saying no football, no basketball, which is a winter sport, no baseball or softball, which is a spring sport. So if we're passing a plan that says we're going to rely on her, and she's already stated, and it was in what the County Department of Education put out on June 2nd, we're basically saying we're not coming back for the whole school year. Now, I don't think most people realize that's in here, but if to at this point say we're not coming back for the whole school year because we're going to rely on her.
So two things, and we've had a conversation. One is that, because I've asked about that question too, because I didn't see that in the document. I know others have had concerns about that. The metrics that we're looking at, the reason they're saying they're supporting the idea of going into right now is the idea that testing is a big possibility and a high rate of community transmission. Those are the things, because we even asked when those start to decline, because if you had talked to folks 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, it was, we were making these great hybrid plans, everyone, it was just as of recently that it had changed. So you are 100% correct. That is in that document of that recommendation at that time. So what I can do is find out what is the new position, what is the new metrics, because I'm not sitting here telling you guys tonight, this is for a year. I do not want that. I don't think anyone wants that. And I also think that that's an important piece that we need to figure out what would trigger us to start coming back to. Right now, I know the inability to effectively test and the high rate of transmission is what has led them to that. I've not heard the you can't come back until the vaccine is ready. So that is something I will keep pushing on, because I know that's for us. It could be 18 months from now, and we can't use that as a metric, so we have to get kids back.
Right.
It's still basically up to us regardless.
Right, but I'm just saying, and it's no different than a board policy. These are our words. We're saying we're going to follow it. Why not change it to the metrics or whatever? Because what we're agreeing to here, if we're saying, because it says without distancing guidelines by, and we say all 4 of these people. So if we're including her and she doesn't change her position, then we're wiping out the whole school year. And I don't think that that's what we want to be here discussing. It's not like I pulled everybody here. I don't know, but the way it's written, that's what we're painting ourselves into a corner on. And that's a poison pill for me.
See, I see it as toggling back up. This is where we start, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard Wilson say today, we're going to look at this month to month in his question and answer session. Let's see 4 weeks from now where we're at. Let's re-examine where we're at. I don't see us making a decision tonight that's for the entire year, not even the entire semester, in my mind.
But I think Donald's point is, if it's in this saying we're following that guidance, and that guidance remains the same, are we putting ourselves into a corner? And so my thought would be is, if we can clarify that in any action that we take, that we would use metrics other than a vaccine, then at least we're on the record showing that that's the way we want to. And we want to hear the data from them, we want to hear what's happening, and then we want to make the decision, to Ms. Anderson's point, based on what we know about our community, because Sacramento County is a very large county. And if this, and heaven forbid, let's say it's more in the south, and we're totally clear up here, well, that's a different decision. So I think what I'm hearing you say is, how do we remain our autonomy and flexibility and not be tied to one recommendation in here, because CDC has some, I mean, a lot of them
Right.
align, but that's the one I know that you and I have talked about a
Right,
lot.
because if you read the June 2nd publication, and I think most people missed it because it's in the footnotes, Dr. Cassirer is not on the same page as Bielenson, or however you say his name. She's the one that wrote the footnotes for the county document on June 2nd. And so if you go into Appendix A on the footnotes of what she wrote, she says vaccine only. Well, suppose the Moderna one isn't ready to go by September.
Right.
And we are sitting here in May of 2020, and so
So to clarify, to not tie, because I think, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but if we're tying ourselves to that, there is so much guidance. I mean, we can either exclude that from any plan we have, or, I mean, to be quite honest, you could, the board, we could strike that from there not as a condition if that makes.
Right.
I don't want to limit the flexibility because it is a,
Well, because even if you got rid of this one woman's position that this is the only road, you still have Centers for Disease Control there. You still have California Department of Education there, right? So,
Yep.
and so and it's not like everybody agrees on that point. When you can look at the National Federation of High Schools saying any of these criteria mean you can come back come to school, then okay, why lock yourself in on that one? So I just
so would it be appropriate then if we, would it meet the need of you and others that we did some sort of asterisk that we exclude that recommendation from the guidance? I mean, the
wouldn't strike
vaccine.
it out, but maybe make a notation.
That- I mean,
We
like
will
asterisk.
use other sources as well,
Okay.
but not eliminate hers as.
Because there is guidance that's consistent with CDC, with
Exactly.
CPH, but we could asterisk it as from the vaccine piece to say, we would use that
We will
possibly.
evaluate all sources.
Okay.
Take
That-
all
that-
sources
that
into
okay, Mike?
consideration.
see that would be something more, because if you read it as it is, it says entry criteria, schools is cleared to reopen by, and that's what, if she never clears us to reopen, we're never going to reopen, right? That's absurd to me.
You could even change that to say the board, I think,
No, it's good.
the board will take into consideration these guidance, where it's
There you
not
go.
a hard
That's perfect.
fast.
That's perfect.
I don't know if I'm thinking that.
No, that's good, that's good.
Because these are, it is, here's the thing is, I'm not a doctor, we do need to take guidance from medical professionals, but I think we also, when you have multiple sources, you want to make sure you're utilizing a consistency approach within those and not, what I'm hearing you say is pigeonholing yourself to one thing with one opinion from one person possibly.
Right, it's no different than when we do board policies,
Yeah.
and I always say, can we put may instead of shall?
Yep, and we
Right.
can
Change the
absolutely
wording.
do that.
This is a living, breathing document.
Yep.
It's, I mean,
Literally.
All right,
You've
is
done a
there,
good job.
is there anything else from board members, because I have some cards from audience members.
like,
The only, are we talking about?
But I think we're talking about the motion and, or whatever, right, the recommendation.
Did
right?
they make comments on it?
How do you want to take public comment? Do you want a board comment?
Well, I wanted the board to get all their questions out, because sometimes when you have these, the board will often ask questions that somebody in the audience has, and then we don't have to do it 2 or 3 times.
Perfect.
So,
Perfect.
I don't want to ask questions, but I have comments on it.
okay. Then go
Is
ahead.
that
Is it okay if, are these going to be directed specific to Mike? Can he sit down and then come up if?
fine? Oh, no, he has a staff.
I'm not a fan. I've been sitting for 2 months.
No.
It hurts to stand.
Sit.
You can sit close.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right.
So I understand the plans, and I appreciate the work that the team and Mr. Jordan and Mr. Layo have put together for us to review. Option, plan 1, we all know is not going to happen. Plan 2, we wish, but because of what's happening, it's not going to happen. So plan 3 is where we are right now. It's not ideal. We all want kids in their seats. And I'm sorry, but that's probably not going to happen right now. And so with this plan, I would recommend, that's not the right word, I would suggest, if you would, at least email the parents the information you gave us tonight, because there's a lot of concerns from the parents that it's going to be like it was in the spring. And we know just from right now, that it's gonna be totally night and day. But they don't, and there's a lot of concerns regarding that. So if you could, maybe not as detailed as you gave us, but give them some kind of direction, some kind of, our goals are, and these are how we're gonna achieve these goals. And even for staff, our goals are, and this is how we would like you to achieve these goals. So everybody has a great picture, a picture of how this is gonna work. And then once school starts and we're in this plan, they can refer to your goals and they can maybe contact you, the principal or a teacher, and say, okay, this is a goal that's not being achieved and this is why I think it's not being achieved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so one of the things is just for the board, we did it in the board packet. We plan to make this whole document live, and then we also plan it, and we were just waiting for direction, then we will give a more scripted, this is the plan that was recommended, this was the plan that was approved, here's where we are starting day one, we'll give it very specific, but we are going to give access to everyone digitally as we improve our plan, because we do believe we're going to be toggling, hopefully, quickly through this system to get to everyone back. So we're not hiding anything in there. We want everyone to have the information in there. It's just, it's been evolving
Every day.
hourly.
Hourly.
I
Hourly.
wonder if
There's
we
also-
could somehow have a slow startup with the number, there's gonna be a number of kids who parents absolutely want them in school for whatever reason.
That's all.
Is there?
That's all.
That's me too.
They don't want to live with their kid either.
So Nancy, what you're getting at, that's really, when we can get kids back safely, that really is the Plan 2 model, is where we can start getting folks back. That's where we're heading. We just need to get to the point where we can get back and get people back and keep staff and students and families safe, is exactly the model. And we're hopeful that, you know, we might be making this recommendation tonight, and in 4 weeks, when we get ready to start, you know, maybe
I would love
thing,
to be
you know,
able
magically
to
goes
offer
away.
them a
I-
choice.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is we got 1, 2, and 3, but actually we're doing 3, 2, 1.
Probably gonna go reverse order. That's
Yes,
most likely.
yeah, sorry, I was, yeah.
Plan,
Yes,
number 1,
yep.
number 2, number 3.
That is our current recommendation.
Thank you.
These things change hourly, as we've known.
There's also a frequently asked questions document that we put together for parents. We just haven't made it live yet, and didn't want to do anything until after tonight.
Okay.
But that's ready to go tomorrow as well.
Could we review the frequently asked question document as well?
Yeah, I can share with you right now.
It's actually the same, it's just extracted smaller, so it's the
Oh,
same questions,
then no.
it's just formatted so a parent could pick it up and,
And then things like, how do I enroll in the plan? How do I, you know, those kind of logistical things as well. How do I get hold of the teacher?
because for the board, and I probably shared this, but the number one question I'm getting daily is, Scott, Michelle, we want to know the plan. You know, we need to figure it out.
Is what?
What is the plan? We need to figure out. As a parent, I need to know. And that's why we are looking for tonight to have that, because otherwise it puts everyone in limbo, from families, students to staff. And we would rather concentrate our energies in this last 3-4 week push to try and get this thing dialed in. And it's based on what we know today. And I'm not kidding. You guys all know. I talked to each of you later last night. I was heading home, life was good, you know, and it was like an hour later, things had changed and so anyway, yes.
You have put in, 20-hour days easily all
Wow.
summer long.
I'm just trying to keep up with Mr. Jordan.
The team
He's
after-
emailing me at 2:30 in the morning and I'm going, no,
It's
Mike.
really appreciated, guys. We know you've gone
But
above and beyond.
In all seriousness, I again want to compliment Mr. Jordan for his efforts and the team that's been working with him. We started with a group of principals and you should see the quote Zoom or the Google Meet now we do this. There's a lot of people giving a lot of things. And we know we haven't thought of everything yet, and that's what's keeping us up at night, is because we want this perfect. We want it the best we can do, but we know we're not going to have everything solved. And I won't speak for Mike, but I know when I'm getting emails at 3 in the morning from him, and I'll look at the date stamp because I'm not up, and it's, hey Scott, I added this to the plan or this. That's the type of commitment that we have to this, and we know it's not ideal. It's not ideal at all. It's not what we want. I haven't met an educator who says, yes, this is the best thing, but in the circumstances we're living in right now, it will be the best that we can do. And I'm committed to that, and I can tell you every single person on that Zoom, the 50-something people, are also committed to that. So,
We're just
The
committed.
true team
committed.
effort.
Committed. Well, that's true. That is true.
Again, the only thing that we should keep aware of or keep an eye on is our students with special needs and IEPs. Because they're struggling and they're struggling hard.
Yes.
And, that's just, and I know you will, you've got a plan for it, but it's just concerning. And our kinders and preschools.
All of them, actually.
Well, everybody, yeah. Thank you.
All right. All right, I have 3 cards. Looks like we have a guest, so, is this Lofton or Lufton?
Lofton?
Lofton. Want to get up and speak?
Welcome.
Hi.
My name is Joan Lofton, and I can hope Mr. Wilson can appreciate my position as well, because I have 4 children that I recently...
He's
Sure.
unfortunately. He's a little taller than you.
I have 4 children that are in your school district that I recently become a guardian. I'm obviously way too old and having 6th graders to a senior, and so I'm really struggling with this. And I'm really hoping that the plans in place and the help that's available will come through, because the last trimester was basically kind of a wash for me, for my students. My senior was very self-motivated and she did really well, but she already had A's. And so, but she still did the work and she still was committed to trying to do the best she could. But she knew she didn't really have to, because, and I see now that that's not going to be an issue this time, right?
Right.
My child who's a 5th grader is a very, very taxing, difficult child. He has an IEP. He attends Dudley, and he's going to be in 6th grade. And it was all I could do to keep him to do an hour's worth of work a day, and that was really, and he didn't care how he did it, he just did it. And so there was no accountability, and that was one of the questions I had. Is there accountability for the students and for the school district? Because if I'm not mistaken, our funding, the school's funding, still comes from students attending school, correct? Even in this model, right?
Yeah, and not to be late, just to answer the question, because others might. So actually, the budget that was approved is actually based on enrollment last year. But we don't want to just say it's about the dollars or whatever. We are still committed, just because we usually are funded off an ADA model. Your attendance gets you the dollars.
Right.
But this time, we're actually, for this current year coming up, we're actually funded off of whatever we received last year. We will get the same without the whole budget's another conversation. But yeah, so it's a different model for the coming school year.
But is there accountability for the students to check in on a daily basis? So
Yes.
you know that they're attending school, whether it's for funding or just for their educational purposes?
Yes,
And that was missing last year.
yes.
And I know that the plan came out, and I had 3 in high school. One's a freshman, a sophomore, and a senior. And I know that there was a plan that came out that said, okay, they're going to go to classes 1 through 4 from 9 to 1, and they're going to go from classes 4 to 6, 4 to 8 but that never happened. There was no checking in. There's like, we don't have to get up, Aunt Joan, this is ridiculous. And they're sleeping on noon, and they get up, they do some work, And then consequently, we ended up spending 2 hours a day with my 8th grader just on math. And the rest of the subjects, there was just no way we even got a chance to even do them. And his grades stayed the same. So they went down visually, but they basically stayed the same. So those are the struggles, and I'm home, but I'm not a teacher. I'm not a teacher, and I'm old enough to, I'm equivalent to their grandmother. I'm equivalent to a grandparent. So I've got a few years, above all of you as far as trying to deal with the school district. One thing was mentioned earlier, and I want to emphasize the fact that there needs to be some way to help some parents like myself dealing with the technology based. Google and in areas showed me, and my sister was helping me, we were just completely lost. And I'm trying to I can't trust the 5th grader and his assessment as to what's being turned in, and we can never get it to match. And
You're not the only one. Don't feel like you are.
And I don't think that we're totally inept either, So, I have, the equipment that kids need, and I have the services that I hopefully, they have a computer, they have printers, they have Wi-Fi. I'm not, But just dealing with the differences between the technology that's being used now, it's just, and I know we're all thrown into this mess. So,
Mess is a good word. Mess.
so, and I know that that is a problem, but I'm hoping there's at least some awareness that can be made, or some little, workshop that the parents can be offered, just to make sure we're all on the same page to know how to help the students become and do the best they can.
That's great.
Again, in what Mr. Jordan was saying in terms of the time frames and the time that we spend in class, I guess I would extrapolate from that they actually are going to go to period 1 and they are going to have a live class from, let's say, 9 to 9:30 in math, and then they're going to have one from 10 to 10:30 in English.
Yes, correct.
So they'll have to be on their computer at that time
Perfect.
participating.
It'll be like a bell schedule, like a normal day.
Yes.
We did not have that last year.
No.
We learned from that mistake.
No.
And I'm sorry, to interrupt. The accountability piece of that is if, and this is now in actual law, if 3 days we don't see you in there, not you, but your students, we need to do outreach and document the outreach. So that's a lot different than,
Last year.
a lot different.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was no checking and
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
And of course, in an elementary school, there was really no grading factors. And so again, my fifth grader,
Kids are
it's like,
smart. They figured it out.
I only have to do 3 things a day, and he could do those 3 things in 20 minutes, then he could go back and play Fortnite, I'm like, oh my gosh. So, but he got through what he was supposed to do, but it was so minimal that it really didn't count. And, I can't even pay him to read. He wants to earn money, and I told him I'd pay him to read, and he'd rather mow the lawn. So, that's another thing. You accomplished some of the things I had questions on. I guess I'm just trying to say is that we just need to make sure that we work, whatever plan comes up and the model is, that this is what's decided. We just make sure we have to all work together, because what happened last trimester really was pretty much a loss. My senior is in Abbott. She's been in Abbott for 4 years. She's going to be applying to colleges. Is that still going to be a viable class that's going to be able to help her and help me make that transition? Because that's going to come right away. That's going to come in September. October.
I have a senior as well, so I'm
I'm
going to
going
give you my card when you're done, so.
When is school actually going to start? Do we have a start date? It's the same?
As of now, it's the same, August
Fourth?
6th.
August 6th?
5th, I'm sorry.
First Wednesday of August. Right?
August is the Thursday, right?
It's
Wednesday.
a Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday. I know schools usually start on.
Yeah.
Okay. I think other than that, you may basically, I have the 2 children that are, have IEPs, the 9th grader and the 6th grader to be. That's still going to be something that they're going to have a
Yes.
case manager with,
Yes.
to work with, and to help fill it. How about counseling, behavioral counseling? The
Yes.
6th grader
Yes,
has been in counseling through Dudley for the last several years.
right.
Will that continue?
That will continue, and we're working on systems for that. And one of the things too is, and I'm looking at Ms. Jordan, he oversees special ed for us as well. We'll both give our contact information, because the questions you're asking are great questions that we want to get out to people. So even as an experience, like I joked about Mr. Wilson, he has 4 kids. We learned a lot, so we'd love to hear from your experiences as well.
Oh, good.
Because, and it's easy, email, phone call.
Like I said, that's what he said before.
But I mean, an email,
Okay.
phone call to let us know the experience only helps us. I mean, it really does. And that's where we want to make this a better experience. We know there were some great experiences with this, but there were some not so good experiences. So, and if you have, so, yes, we recognize that.
It was very hard to get it. And I think one of the things I found was the fact that, and I understand intellectually the reasons behind it, but basically telling the students right up front that your grades couldn't go down, that they just checked out, right? Most of them just checked out. Or they said, okay, I'll check out of this 7, I'll just work on my math because I need that up. So that's what they did. And so that was a problem in my mind, in terms of their overall learning, if they lost a semester, right? They lost that trimester of classwork. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead, I thought you were done.
no, I am. Go ahead.
Make sure she gets put on a list for any kind of a parent information meeting on math or whatever,
Yeah.
how to
one of the things, and I
Math
know,
is completely over my head, so any tutoring.
well, and one of the things I think you just mentioned, Miss, who teaches at Dudley, was saying Dudley's already working on it, so we're already looking at how can we do some of these, because we knew Google Classroom's tough on people, when we were kids, we didn't have it, so, and we'll get you our contact information so you can reach to us.
And the same thing with packets. I mean, I don't know if, and I know the higher kids don't need that, but I would think elementary, even the sixth grade, having the actual paper packets that they had before this happened
Yeah.
is still a viable, factor to include
Yes.
and not make it all. I mean, because, well, if it's an accountability hit, he might do it, but he didn't care, it wasn't counted, so he just went through and everything was Khan Academy, and it was all done online, and he just went to the problems and just did a multiple choice. So he's not actually working through problems, and it was just very hard to get him to focus on that.
Yeah, parents look at it, they have no clue.
Oh,
Trust me,
unless I listened to the Khan Academy, I was able to help him with fifth grade math, but that's about as far. When it got to eighth grade math, there was no way. So I'm already lost in that scenario if it wasn't for his older sister. So anything in terms of those kinds of subjects that can be done in some kind of micro class, or, we were talking about the students of 4 to 5 students at a time in certain categories, I think math would be essential. I mean, you're asking kids to go into integrated math, which again never existed. Even his older sister didn't even have that. She's at Sac State now. 2 years ago, she never had integrated math. So even her trying to help him is a whole different concept of how it's taught. So anything like that, of those difficult subjects, they're taking math 1, 2, and 3 before they even get out of high school. I would tell you that I would think that even 90% of your parents are totally lost
Yeah,
and not going to
agreed.
be able to help them.
Agree.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time and energy, and I appreciate that you let me speak tonight.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're
truly.
off to good
Thank you.
turns.
Yeah.
And if you want to email any of us,
Yeah.
Mr. Langer, our email addresses are on the website.
Okay, I will take you up on that. And it was unfortunate that, sorry, I get a little upset, but it kind of hit me in the face today when I found the news by reading it on the Bee before there's been a decision from, and I'm sure you all are familiar with the article that came out of the Bee.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, I was
Oh,
not
yeah.
happy. Sorry.
None of us were happy, let me tell you.
I was in interviews and I saw it pop up on my phone and that's not what we talked about, so.
And I thought that, and then I actually called the Sac County Board,
Oh,
and probably because I've also always been confused by their role in life, but they're saying, oh, no, that's not us. So they pass it back to you guys. But I'm saying there's no way we can make a decision with that kind of information, but it's just unfortunate it got disseminated in that format.
Yeah.
One-
We agree.
100% agree. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice face.
Probably didn't recognize me from
I was gonna say
mask, I
that.
have to
You know the
say.
voice, but.
I told my mom that we're going back to school, and so I said I need a mask for every day so that they can be laundered. And so she brought a bag full, and my 2 sons who are center high students and myself, we have about 20 masks in our house
Nice.
now.
Color coordinated.
Yes. So I'm Vanessa Mason, CUTA president, and I want to say that I stand by the teachers who worked very, very hard in March when we were notified at 2 o'clock on a Friday that we were not going to be in school till May, and then that was, extended obviously. They made it work with the materials they had and the knowledge that they had, but now we all know more. And so because we know more, we can absolutely do a better job. And so, and then we'll be awesome at it. Comments from a previous board remark was that in Google Classroom, parents can request to be a part of the classroom and get notifications. So I suggest that parents who are watching and parents or teachers who are watching, that is part of the protocol that takes place when they set up their Google Classroom. You invite the student using the student email, and then you invite the parent using the parent email. That way there is none of the, my son said this, he or she only got 1 day notice. They are all aware, they're getting a million emails from the teachers right along with the students. So that is definitely a safeguard for parents to have so that they know everything that's being asked of their students.
Nice.
CUTA sent out a survey last week to our members asking Considering the health and safety of others and themselves, how comfortable were they returning to work? So in Plan 1, we had 161 responses for the survey out of 240 members. 73% of our staff said they were absolutely not comfortable coming back to work. In Plan 2, again, 161 responses, 49% said they were not comfortable returning to work in Plan 2. In Plan 3, asked about their health and safety, 6% said they were not comfortable returning. Now, I'm not sure if that meant they were going all online and they were uncomfortable with the academics of it, but I'm just reporting the results. So at this time, based on that data, CUTA at this point is only supporting Plan 3 for the fall semester, and this is based on the survey. The survey also asked them questions, and I'd like to read a few of those. I don't have the names here, so I don't know who wrote them. I feel uncertain that we will be able to provide adequate compliance with the health recommendations listed in the playbook for both students and staff. At first, there might be a honeymoon period of compliance, but when coming to school is once again routine, I'm afraid that compliance will taper off and the children will behave like children. Another comment, substitutes. What do we do about substitutes? Preparing materials and instructions for substitutes when we're teaching on a 40-60 hybrid. Who's gonna sub? Another question, how often will teachers be tested for COVID? Another comment, I'm sorry. Teachers will spend more time being the hygiene police than actual teaching. And I mean, these were pages of comments. I mean, they had lengthy comments to say about coming back to school under either the Plan 1 or Plan 2. Another comment, it is important that administrators consider the number of individuals teachers would be coming into contact with as well as students. I see no value in the 40-60 plan, which exposes teachers to the same number of students. This has the effect of exposing all classmates to each other by the way of the adults. It also aggravates planning time grievances. In order to take on 40 or more students and no class budget, this would be really difficult. A couple more, skipping around here. Another comment, I don't feel like the additional exposure to specifically the secondary teachers due to having multiple classrooms has been given enough consideration. Elementary teachers will be interacting with one group of about 30 students. Secondary teachers will be interacting with around 150 students per week. Teachers and staff are going to be exposed to multiple students, and we don't know how seriously those households are taking the virus and what precautions have been taken, if any, and how much exposure they have had. Not to mention, with the population of students, this is a special ed teacher, there are already severe hygiene issues, and I honestly can't imagine that my students are going to be able to tolerate wearing masks all day. So if we go back to a hybrid schedule, I am being put at great risk, and so are the students. So that was just a synopsis of what they were saying, but overall, nobody supported any plan other than Plan 3 in the comments that were made. And I understand that we're going to need to toggle back and forth, possibly from Plan 3 to Plan 2. I shared a letter with staff today that made that very clear, that despite their comments, if in the end we go from Plan 3 to Plan 2, the hybrid model, that the matrix that's used considers the safety first above all else, because that you cannot support staff if you don't have, you can't support the students if you don't have healthy teachers and healthy CSEA representatives cleaning the rooms, providing the lunches, driving the kids to school every day. So I feel that it's vitally important that safety comes first in this new climate we're experiencing. And that's the end of my remarks. Are there any questions?
Now the question that I have.
Okay.
I want to thank all the teachers for working very hard during the spring semester. It was a difficult choice that they were put into, and as you said, they were just kind of thrown into the mix. I hope I didn't because they didn't. It was just a learning for everybody.
No, and not you specifically. I just think we hear, like, there was a minute in April where people were like, oh my God, teachers are miracle workers. I can't believe they do this with 30 students. I can't even do it with one. And then I feel like May, parents and students gave up, and that gave everything that, all the energy that had been put into the process, a really bad rap.
Yeah.
Like, it's too hard, I can't do it, my students won't wake up. I have two of my own, I experienced very similar results. But I just think we have to thank them for working so hard, and then knowing that, again, we're asking them to do something we've never done.
And I thank them.
Yes, thank you.
My favorite post on Facebook was a woman saying, my kids have been kicked out of school till the end of the year, and the teacher's been fired. You know,
Yes.
They had a good time with it, but it was very frustrating for a lot of parents.
Yes, and I understand the technology and the training wasn't there, but again, we also didn't have the training, and so we were
But I have
untrained, teaching the
so
untrained.
much respect for our teachers for, I mean, literally, at hour's notice, you know, and they picked up and went on with it online without much of a kickback at all, as
Right.
far as I know.
My recommendation to make things a little different for next year is that we issue them a Chromebook as well as any textbooks, because as I'm processing through the meetings that seem to be never ending,
The whole district pulled
if we
together,
are
it was
on,
everybody.
if we're on a distance learning model, or what was the new word?
Virtual learning.
Virtual learning, virtual educating model, the students are going to need their math workbooks, their language arts workbooks, because even if we come back to Plan 2 on the hybrid model, they will be distance learning 3 days a week. They will still need the workbooks and the manuals and whatever at home. So my suggestion is we give that to them from the get-go and not run a bunch of packets, because the packets are not approved curriculum, the textbooks are.
Is that in the plan, Mr. Jordan?
Every single person in this district, I think every one of you, you've all pulled together and pulled it off and did a wonderful job at a minute's notice, you know? And all of you have worked so hard
Thank you.
to do that. It's been noticed, and we thank you, all of you.
Any other
Thank you.
comments, questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Huggins.
Oh, I like your shirt.
You said over.
Sitting too long. Marie Huggins, I am the classified union president. And first off, I would like to say regarding what Mike had to say, we have two counties, and the two counties are way different in the way they're seeing whether or not to comply with the mandate of our governor. So in the fact that we have people that live in both counties, that's going to be a concern from a lot of people's standpoint as to how people are going to be willing to comply. And so we're going to get pushback from people who may feel that their county isn't as strict as our county in Sacramento. And so we do need to be mindful of that. On another note, I work in the business office, and take off my union hat for a moment. As an employee that works in the business office, and we're on a hybrid model right now where we work every other day. We have two teams, an A team and a B team, or a group and a B group, sorry. We're getting calls because, gee, all the schools are closed, so what are all the phone messages from the schools are telling you to call our number, which they do. Parents want to know, so when is a decision going to be made? How do I register my child? Do I have to wait until the schools are back? When are the schools back? They're very concerned about a lot of questions that we don't have answers to. And so in as much as we progress with the teachers being able to handle the questions that parents have, it would also be good if classified in the offices have some learning about what's going on and how we can support what the district is doing. I think it would be helpful to have people in the offices at the schools be able to field some of these questions that we've been trying to field. I had a lot of people this week especially asking, when is a decision going to be made? So I threw it on you guys and said, well, if the board's going to make a decision Wednesday night, you should be seeing something Thursday or Friday on our webpage. So please, I'm back in the office tomorrow. Please make sure there's something out there for those people. But again, it's a matter of, we're all in this together, and the support staff is part of who's in this with the teachers. And so I really appreciate all of the effort, and I know the teachers have been incredibly taxed over what they've needed to do and trying to help parents. But I've also heard from parents who are incredibly frustrated with their kids not being able to get responses back from teachers, with their kids not being able to understand how to get into the technology. And so I think professional development for the teachers for some distance learning and for classified and for parents is going to be really part of a very critical piece if we're going to move forward, no matter what model we have, because there's still going to be some distance learning no matter what model we do, because some people are just going to be more comfortable with that. So I implore you to think of all of those different scenarios for all of us. Okay, now I'm putting my union hat back on. So,
Before you do that,
Sorry?
can I make a comment?
Sure.
Mr. Wright? Are you going to provide training for classified in regards to the processes we're going through? Or communicate somehow with classified employees?
We've shared the playbook with all employees, so that process, and then as far as work-related processes, Marie said, oh, I work every other day. They actually are working from home the other days. We've set people up with virtual laptops. Some of the things like Marie, for example, receiving checks and stuff like that, that has to be done here. So the processes associated with their work, yes, we're training those of that. And then as far as informing them about the processes, yes, we'll communicate the same.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So Friday afternoon, I got a text from Vanessa letting me know that the teachers were doing a survey. And I really appreciate that because we've been kind of wanting to know how our people feel. And we went ahead and did a survey as well, based on the one that the teachers did. So pretty much the same questions. How do you feel as far as option 1, 2, and 3? On plan 1, which is everybody back like regular, 68% were uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. 25% were comfortable. And 52% said, yeah, I'd come back to work. Plan 2, 33% were uncomfortable. 41% were comfortable. 73% said, yeah, I'd come back to work. Plan 3, 14% were uncomfortable. 67% were comfortable. And 83% said, yeah, I'd come back to work. Only problem is, for classified, there would not be work to come back to, except in as much as we involve the para-educators and the food service people and the transportation folks and some of the office people, but there would still be some that would not be able to, quote unquote, return to work. So that leads me to what I have to say as union president. I believe it is the desire of every Center Joint Unified School District staff member to see all of our students and families have a positive and successful educational experience. I think we would agree that the preferred way to teach students is in a classroom setting where they can be engaged and assisted. If we lived in a perfect world, we would not be having this conversation. We took a survey of our classified staff. A large percentage are willing to and ready to come back to school or work, but they have strong reservations and many questions about what that would look like. We feel the regular school full open model is not a safe option due to the health and safety of students and staff. No masks and no social distancing are not okay. The hybrid model is a good option to stay engaged with students, but there are many concerns about social distancing, adequate PPE, wearing a mask, cleanliness of classrooms, etc. There should be a lot of discussion as to how all the protocols would be standardized from site to site. There are economic concerns as well that may be alleviated by the hybrid model, preserving jobs, health benefits, and keeping people from losing their homes. There is concern that the district could lay off employees due to a lack of work if distance learning was the only option. What irony to lose health benefits because of a potentially deadly virus. There is concern that the needs of special ed students and those with IEPs cannot be effectively met via online. We trust that the district is going to monitor and modify the learning model for Center Joint Unified School District as the data from public health organizations is available to ensure the safety of students and employees. Thank you.
How much room do we have to play with those positions as far as putting them to work or keeping them working?
Repurposing, for lack of a better word. I think that that is something that we will be discussing in negotiations. And as our union will be putting together an MOU with the district as to how to reopen and what we need to be able to do to make sure that as many people have jobs as possible. So we will be putting some language together that will help us to hopefully have more flexibility, because there are a lot of people that could update emergency cards. There's people who could, be doing other stuff in offices that they may not be able to do right now because they've been in the classrooms, but they could still be an aid in helping to get the information that we need to be able to make sure that everyone's being serviced. So yes, I think that that's something we will consider. I just can't say how
Definitively.
flexible some people are going to be to work outside of what they think their job description is. If I can say that, and still be politically
It's
correct.
hard everywhere,
It is tough.
all the way
It is
around,
tough.
because we don't want to see people lose jobs either.
Thank you.
And
So I know I appreciate that question, because that's something that we're looking at, but also something that we're gonna need. I don't know that I can say we need assurances, but we are looking for the best way to keep people employed, because down the road, as we go to option one, we're gonna need those people.
yeah, exactly.
And there's no place else for some of them to get jobs, so if they're laid off, they could lose their homes, they'll lose their health benefits.
It's a struggle to get bus drivers now. If we let
Right.
them all go, we may never get them back.
Right, so I appreciate that.
Scott will make it work. We'll keep them all.
No pressure for everybody.
Yeah.
Lisa, I know you're listening.
He does have that crystal ball after all.
Yeah.
So-
It's not working lately.
So thank you very much. for-
Marie, you raised something that I probably don't know if I should ask Scott, Vanessa, you, all three of you, but it's something that's very real, and it seems like everybody's kind of been avoiding it. If, and I don't know how much people follow, but obviously there's a tug of war going on between state of California and Washington DC, and a couple times in the last week and a half, the president has tweeted out, if you don't go back to school, you're not getting federal funds. Has anybody discussed, and I know people don't want to discuss health versus money, et cetera, like that, but it could be a very real scenario, especially when you consider that we're getting our tax receipts today, because everything's been pushed back, businesses have been closed, and the federal government makes up 40% of our budget, right? So we don't do all our own budget. So, and if you haven't had the discussions, that's fine. I'm trying to think a step ahead. If we don't open, then I'm thinking people, and they withhold those funds, we're laying people off anyway. So is there, has there been any sort of, I don't even know what, I know what I'm trying to ask, but I haven't formed a question yet. And that's, because that could be a very real scenario, right? And so I'm just trying to think, I don't think anybody here, I mean, we're a small enough district, we all know each other, so do we want to lay anybody off? No, but especially with what some people are predicting what the is coming in today, there's actually, I don't know if you know who Chris Street is, but he's the first guy who predicted the Orange County bankruptcy, and I got a chance to talk to him, and when he first said Orange County was going bankrupt a year before it went bankrupt, everybody was like, put your crack pipe down, blah, 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 right? He's saying once these receipts come in, California doesn't have cash flow to last more than 90 days. If that's true, I don't know if that's been talked about, thought about, but those are the kind of things that go through my mind of like, because I look at that, I'm like, how do we ever get out of that? I don't know how we ever, I'm not pretending I have the answer to that, but as I'm looking at these things lining up and the dominoes falling, I trust Chris Street a lot. He was the only one that did. If it was just some random guy saying California's out of money, because look at, but when he's the first guy who called Orange County and says, with the tax receipts come in, we don't think California has more than 90 days of cash flow, we're just starting the school year then, even if we were back in school. So now, if we're not going to get those federal funds, so I guess I just kind of throw that out there for people to think about, because this might be bigger, than the people in this room.
Sure. And CSEA is giving us guidelines weekly as to how to negotiate going forward and how to look at the different scenarios going forward and trying to, as much as lies within us, to be able to look at some of these scenarios as possibilities and what happens then.
So one of the things I do know is Lisa is built, when she came to us, we did know 3 years from now we had an issue, then the California magically changed the budget. And I think we've all said that there's a lot out there that we still don't know, and to me, if there's a deficit, you can kick it down for a little bit, but that is going to come. So that's why, forget distance learning, not distance learning, all that. It's going to come to roost at some point, so we have to aggressively work at filling whatever hole it has. Your scenario you're sharing would be much worse because it'd be, catastrophic. But locally, I've not heard anything from what the president has shared through our groups. Lisa was at a director's meeting, I think, Monday morning. Did not hear anything that I'm aware of, so we have not heard that, but it doesn't mean it's not true. Or it wouldn't happen. But I would say that we're still working to build budget, and on August 19th meeting, Lisa will have finished up based on the dashboard, and we'll be able to see where we lie now based on the current. But my concern still revolves around, I don't know, they're saving money by some trickery like they did in the past, and it's going to come to roost. So we still have to be fiscally very, very conservative, because it may not be this year, but it's going to happen. So that's why, and unfortunately, layoffs, things like that that's a big bulk of our budget. So we can't guarantee anything, and I know that's not what you're saying, but.
And can I add that I don't think tweets make policy, and I'm not a government expert, so I would defer to my government teacher here, Heather Woods. But I don't believe that the whole of the federal government would stop funding schools in 41 states that are considering closing to do distance learning. I mean, that's just my belief in the good that people.
Safety of their students.
I mean, we closed school with 3 cases, and now we have 58,000 in the country, and we want to reopen schools. I mean, the math doesn't add, but again.
I think we're a little off topic now,
Yeah.
but I just.
Well, no,
I mean,
I understand what you're saying, but the scenario they're laying out, even if the feds don't withhold that money, I mean, how many trans have we issued in the last 10 years, starting in 2008, when we had to go out because they didn't have the money to give them?
Somewhere down the line, somebody's got to pay Piper for all this.
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
Exactly.
We're just asking to be a part of the conversation. We're asking to be acknowledged and to be a part of whatever we can do going forward to be able to make this work for our district. And hopefully at some point, we'll all be able to be back together in a classroom and possibly wearing masks. Nevertheless, but, you know, we live in hope. So, thank you.
We hear you.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
Cheryl, do you have online cards?
Yeah.
What? Not the hard ones, she said there's some online.
I have, I think 15 of them here.
How many?
15.
Okay.
Some are questions, some are comments, and some of them may have already been addressed, but let me read through them here.
But just a point of order, I would just, obviously, we're receiving public comment, so after each one, usually a board would receive the comment. Maybe after that, if there's something you want to address in your comments, but I don't know from an efficiency standpoint if we want to hash out every single question.
I
So-
don't think we'll have a face-to-face.
Well, and I think some of them would be things that later we would need to forward to Mr. Jordan,
Okay.
and he could address their question.
Okay.
All right, so this one is from Jan Carver Silva. My sons are high school students. Spring online school was very disorganized as a whole. Some teachers were pretty good and others did absolutely nothing at all. There were very inconsistent class meetings and the times sometimes conflicted with each other. What is being done to ensure that classes will be held regularly and students will be covering all that they would normally cover? We go to the next one.
Should at least acknowledge that.
They can go to Mr. Jordan.
Right.
I would forward questions to Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, so what we can do is anything here, we can make sure that we get those, but I think he did cover that in his presentation as well.
Let me,
And while she's looking, just so you know, these all came in during the board meeting, so I'm assuming most of these people are live watching, so
Yes.
they should, if they stuck with us.
this one is from Latoya Jenkins. It says, regarding school, is the district going to help parents with any extra school supplies? Also, since we are doing distance learning, a social worker should do a well check on kids.
Good question.
So thinking out loud while she's going, what I'll do is I'll take each of these, because that's a Ryan Miranda question, and we'll actually work through these different questions as well, so we'll get those.
All right, the next one is from, again, Latoya Jenkins regarding school. How is this going to work for kids with special needs? Next one is from Michelle, sorry if I pronounce it wrong, Uchida. Distance learning. I would like to know the exact learning platforms that you plan on using for each subject, not Khan Academy or Google Classroom. They were total failures last year. This one is from, just says Lori. Distance learning. If the kids are not being taught at the school and parents have to provide the environment for the learning, internet, supplies, computers, etc., is the school funds being directed to us from the government as we are doing the work and providing all necessary supplies? Then, this one is from Sylvia Anderson. Comment on tonight's meeting. I just wanted to say that I love the idea of having the high school distance learn in the afternoon hours. Studies show most teens need extra rest in the morning and do better with a later start time. So I am all for pushing back their start time as mentioned by Mr. Jordan. Thank you. From Karen, masks. Why isn't the board member wearing a mask? Does he not abide by state mandates or care about public health? Should he be making decisions about our children's safety?
Can I answer that?
The next one is from T. Plummer, a 504 questions for junior high. Will 504 accommodations for the students change because of distance learning? Students with 504s and IEPs struggle as it is. How are we going to be able to meet their needs? The next one is from, again, Michelle Uchida. Learning, 1 hour a day. If there is not a structured program, my child will be leaving and going to a structured homeschool program. It sounds to me like there has been no time spent planning this. What about accountability for the teachers? Again, teachers are teaching only 1 hour a day. They should be live streaming for 4 to 6 hours a day. Next one is from Melissa Connolly. Online learning doesn't work. My daughter was on the honor roll in junior high. She was struggling with online learning, and she cares about her grades, and the last week she gave up. I have never seen her so defeated with school before, ever. And as far as parents go, how do we work and support our kids online? Are you going to provide me a paycheck and medical to support my children? I don't just have a high school student. I have a second grader, and I'm about to have another baby. Are we really going to experiment with our kids' education? This didn't work. And I agree, my kids tried so many times to communicate with her teachers, and I will say, science, we were lost. Some classes need instructional, in-class instruction. The Zoom classes were a joke. If you ever sat in on them, especially the first grade school kids. And as far as grade school, parents don't know Common Core math. We were lost. And this one is from Melissa Torado. Preschool/TK. When they mention preschool, do they mean TK? Will TK have the option of getting a Chromebook as well, since they do not have much work like the older grades?
I'll answer that, yes.
Okay, so that is a yes. Then from, I did have someone inquire about the playbook that you guys were referring to, wanting to know if the playbook for parents, if it was available for parents to view during the meeting, because she had parents asking, so I did forward the link to the board packet to her. Then from Becky Eastwood, says, thank you. The new plan is amazing, thank you. I would like to know that there is a process in place for parents at any age level, but specifically at the older grades, to reach out if we find classes are falling short of meeting the needs of our students, even for the honors class students. And this one is from Nicole LaPointe, 2021 school year plan. I have a new student enrolling into your district this year, 6th grade. My concern is how he will be assessed with the curriculum. He is coming from a private school, and the proposed plan is less time academically than what he was spending last year with distance learning. If there is only virtual interaction with instruction, what other interactions will be done to assess whether he's being challenged enough? There was reference to social emotional activity. I'm assuming it's peer interaction of some sort, but as a new kid, what will be done to ensure he feels connected to his teacher and peers? What about physical activity? Is there PE at the elementary level, and how will that be measured? Okay, and a few more. This one is from Becky Eastwood, parent in Google Classroom. I have never been included to be a part of the Google Classroom. Please make this a requirement for all teachers to include us. We can always opt out as needed. This one is from Becky P. Virtual learning question. One of the challenges last year was the teachers not understanding how to use Google Classroom and not communicating effectively when there was a problem. For example, my then third grader would upload a completed document and the document would somehow say blank. The teacher assumed he was not doing the work and turning in blank assignments. She would respond in a private message on the assignment. However, my son didn't know to check his email frequently to see these messages. This went on for 2 weeks before the teacher contacted me to tell me he was going to lose points in Class Dojo for not completing the work. This was unfair to my son, and the teacher was unwilling to work with me on the issue. My son had to redo 2 weeks of assignments in the course of a few days. Situations like these, especially in the current public health emergency, should be met with compassion and understanding. So my question is, will the teachers be trained on using the virtual platforms and also be trained on working with families and students when issues arise? And will there be some type of guidance on when to reach out to the parents if a teacher is seeing a problem? The preference being sooner rather than later. And I believe the next one is also from that same parent. Yes, another virtual learning question from Rebecca P. Will parents be given the choice to not toggle back if they choose? I want my kids to do virtual learning and am not necessarily comfortable sending my children back just because the state says it is safe to do so. So will parents be given the choice to continue school for their students completely virtually, even if the district moves to a hybrid model?
You should say yes.
Yes.
And that answer is yes. All right. And I have 3 of them here from Bonnie Shiro. So I believe they were comments when our 2 union presidents were speaking. So in regards to textbooks, I believe that was when Vanessa was speaking. And she said, we are checking them all out, textbooks and Chromebooks if needed for a class. So I would say that she was answering for the high school. And then she said, notification, the high school principal has been sending out updates continuously. We had someone in our office until June 30th accepting enrollment packets and answering questions, and emails have been answered. And then her third one, I believe it was when Marie was speaking about our classified possibly not working. Bonnie commented, they still get paid. All right. Oh, I have some more that just came in. Another one from Bonnie Shiro. Oh, sorry, Bonnie, it says, don't read mine. All right. This one came in from Jennifer Franco. Parents who work. What is to be done for parents who work? I cannot adjust my schedule and I cannot supervise my son while he takes these classes. And so much work was put on the parents as teachers were not available for help. And from Brian, start of the school year. Will the start of the school year be delayed in order to give teachers an adequate time to build and design their programs? Oh, and then the lady that I passed the link to, she said thank you, she passed the link along, and I have another one that just came in. This is from Esteban Rodriguez, says thank you for being transparent. Okay, and that's all I have at this time.
I think that concludes our business, does it not?
Well, no, we'll direct those to the appropriate things. A lot of those were answered during Mr. Jordan's presentation, so we'll go through those. Like there was one, I can't remember which one, but there's one in there I wrote down as an idea that I don't know if someone else had thought of, so we'll go through them all.
And I have them all flagged.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second, correct?
Just on a
Oh,
point of-
yep, Jeremy.
I don't know if it's order, policy, procedure.
Just
but-
call it a point of order.
Okay. Scott, I already talked about Scott, but just, I'm not expecting any action on it, just so you know where I am on this. I feel like the playbook is something that the board should approve, like, or not approve based on, whatever the vote might be, but that it's a approval of a policy. But in my opinion, that the board make a decision on, do we open in stage 1, 2, or 3? To me, that is something that is defined within the playbook, and it's based on metrics from county public health or input from public health, input from county board of education, and then district administration. And so, I mean, when we move back and forth between these stages, when we get out of stage 2, well, we wouldn't start in stage 2. Well, you're proposing we start in what stage?
Stage 3.
Plan three.
Right, so assuming we get out of stage 3 quickly, we're not going to come back to the board for that decision. That's going to be a decision made by district administration based on input from county public health and county board of education. So you see what I'm saying? I feel like we're making a decision that should be made by district administration based on policy that we implement, just like every other policy we implement. I mean, it's not a policy decision. What stage we start? It's not a policy decision. It's not a budget decision. It's not being presented as a staffing. It could be. It's not being presented as a staffing decision. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't fall within our purview. So
I
I understand where Scott is trying to be on getting us all on the same page, and I'm not saying we shouldn't make the decision we're going to, but when we address these kind of things in the future, it feels like we're kind of going out of.
Well, I think I understand what you're trying to say. I'm not sure if the way you're saying it, I understand it. But because there is a staff recommendation that we start at a particular step. And so I think that, not that we're locking into that unless, of course, there's certain parameters in this, and that's why I raised what I raised. Because I think with the parameters as they're written, we are locked in to that and they don't get to move. But I think staff is asking for a recommendation to start, or making the recommendation, is it okay to start on step 3?
Right. But when they make their recommendation to go from 3 to 2, that's not going to be an
I don't think-
agendized action item. That's
I don't
my
think
point.
you're coming back,
Right,
right?
that's my
No,
point.
and that's one thing I was going to seek clarity on, because obviously I communicate with you guys. I would 100, I'm not just going to, oh, by the way, yesterday we went back. I mean, most of you have kids, you know. But we would certainly inform, but it would be nice if we had that direct discretion and input from you guys as well. And I think I shared, if we enter in phase 3, I'm hopeful that we'll then move to 2 and then 1. But there could be indications that we could get to 2 and then, let's say something changes, we have to go back. So if that's the clarity I would seek from you guys. Do you want to come back to a board meeting to enter the phases, or are you comfortable with the 3 scenarios? And then obviously as we communicate through those, staff would make that determination.
No, I'm not a public health official. I mean, I can look at the plan and say, this is a good plan, follow these procedures as you move through these stages. This is what's good for kids, staff, community, whatever state case may be. But for me to say I'm the best person to make a decision on whether it's safe for kids to come back to school, I'm not an epidemiologist. I mean, that's not my purview, right? So I can look at a plan and say, yeah, this is good. You're consulting all these people. We can support this plan. But as we move between these stages, we're not making that decision. That's my point.
Okay.
I understand it's already agendized and we're going to do that. We're going to either support or not support district recommendation.
Right. Right. Thank you for the clarity on that too, because when we left, I think I was not clear in my mind when I said we would come back with a recommendation for where we would start. So that might have been my mix-up on that as well. But thank you for the clarity, because if the board approves this plan, the entire plan, and says, yeah, start in plan 3, then that gives us the latitude to go between with guidance from multiple individuals. And to Donald's point of correcting that one thing, we would not use that as the only metrics to return to phase 2 or phase 1.
So the action item on the table right now is to approve the playbook and start school in stage 3. That's correct. So it's
correct.
Then that's my point, is we moved so quickly. I mean, even since we received the packet, it's changed, which is less than a week, right?
Yes.
So we're not gonna agendize this every 6 days.
No.
We want to change.
Well, and Mr. Lair
Well,
is really,
sometimes it's hourly.
Mr. Lair is really good about communicating with all of us.
Of course,
And so we
yeah.
give him input and he takes that and,
And he's hired along with the rest of, cabinet to make these
exactly.
decisions, and we trust him to consult with us and with faculty association and class 5.
Carol,
I did get 2 more comments. So 2 more comments. This one is from Ryan. It says, teachers, what will the teachers do with their children during the day if the district chooses to do distance learning? Will they be given the option to work from home? And now this one just popped up from Nick Bryant. Are you guys allowing volunteers?
No.
No.
Yeah, so I think,
That's in the playbook.
All right.
no, we can't.
So, we did have a motion. Wait a second, Craig. Okay, a motion and second. I believe the motion is to pass staff recommendation, begin in stage 3. Mrs. Anderson. I don't remember. It's been
We
so
had the
long.
motion to bring it to the floor, and you guys voted to bring it to the floor, so I would think you would need now a
Okay.
new motion to
So
actually.
do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the item.
Before you vote, could I just say one thing? I just got a text that popped up, Dry Creek had just announced they also will be starting a distance learning. So just point it.
I motion to approve the item.
They
All
went
right,
full
we have
online.
Mr. Hunt approves. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mrs. Pope. Mrs. Anderson.
My preference would be Plan 2, but I understand we can't go there, so Plan 3, I approve.
All right, so Mrs. Anderson votes aye. Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope votes aye. Mr. Hunt? Mr. Hunt votes aye. Chair votes no. That brings us to advanced future planning, August 19th, 2020, 5 p.m. at this location. Do we have any suggested agenda items?
Yes. I've already talked to Mr. Lair about it, but just so the board's aware. And I brought it up at the last meeting as well, I think, but just 3-year budgetary plan for making necessary reductions, so we're not looking at a $6 million deficit in our out years, in the third out year. What are we doing now? What are we doing next year? So we can ease into this and spread the pain out. Let's take care of some this year and some next year, some the following year. Mrs. Lair will.
Yes, and she will be bringing forward, she's adjusted budget, so that meeting will do it. And then we also, I think, it might have been you, Mr. Hunt, said, recommended we do a budget committee to get that going. So we didn't want to start it until we knew a little bit more solid what the numbers will be. So she was putting together what we do based off the budget, and then we'll work on that process. So next month, we should have a good indication of where we are based on what we know.
Right.
Can we put a placeholder on the agenda to discuss anything that may come up in between on the distance learning and, just
Like an update on distance learning?
an update, so that community members talk to us, we have questions, or you have a new plan, or whatever comes up, that we can discuss it in open session.
So we could have just for my clarity, like just an open discussion about it, like,
Right, there's,
yeah, that's what I'm trying to,
just an
I mean,
open
you can have
item
Mr.
sort
George
of.
make an update, but we're only a week or 2 into school at that point,
Yeah.
right?
so we would encourage feedback, and so I don't know if that would be too soon, or if it would be, I get your point, is basically you want the board to be informed on how it's going, is what I'm hearing?
Well, just a place on the agenda that we can bring up things and ask questions
So
directly concerning the COVID and the way it's working out.
So I would put on an update, a report update on our distance learning piece, and then that would open up to questions and comments, so I'll agenda that. The other piece is, I just want to remind, is with the filling the vacancy, it may be, if we have multiple applicants, we may have to schedule another separate meeting, so we'll keep you posted on that. If not, it would be on that August 19th meeting, which is probably going to be pretty packed, so just brace yourselves.
So if we're in COVID, which we will be, are you gonna have chairs outside, Mr. Beeson?
So one of the things we're going to work on is live streaming it. The room here, to get multiple people in, we're better off to use the live streaming and the model that we're using. We have some seats in here. but especially if it escalated in our area, I would not want to gather even more people. It kind of goes against what we're trying to avoid.
So live stream would be possible like these.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was, yes, we could do that, or we could do Zoom, or we could bring them in, so we'll have to work through that. Yeah, sorry, my misunderstanding.
All right,
You know what we should too point out, Joe was just thinking about it, that Board Member Malad Bailey did not have anything to do with, or his death had nothing to do with the COVID-19. He
Right.
developed cancer just within weeks after he ran for school board and fought a tough battle. Wonderful man, big giant teddy bear, loved kids, and he'll be missed.
Motion to adjourn.
okay, we got a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mrs. Pope. Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope?
Hi.
Mrs. Pope and Mrs. Anderson both vote aye. Mr. Hunt? Mr. Hunt votes aye. Chair votes aye. Meeting is adjourned at 8:16.